Hey everyone, Rushlock here, and as always, if you want news, tips, and tricks for EVE Online, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. So today's video is going to be about the SKINR system. A lot of conversation, a lot of feedback flying around about the system so far. There's some complexity to the system, but I wanted to kind of focus on the one part of it that stood out to me as a bit confusing. And if we go into the fitting window, this is how I access the SKINR system. I go to Personalization tab on the fitting window here, and we hit the View Sequence Skins. This is a pop-up telling us that next Thursday they're going to add in an option for us to be able to buy and sell skins that we create with other players. Here it shows where we're going to probably be making those purchases and shopping. You can also go to Design Elements to buy components for your own creations. You can view your own collection here, or you can go into the studio and start designing. So let's create a new design here, and we're going to make it very, very simple. We're just going to click buttons here to get an example running. Alright, there we go. Let's see a pattern over there, put that on this side, very good. Okay, let's pretend for the moment that we spent, some considerable amount of time designing a skin that we were attached to, that we were very, very proud of. We were excited to fly it. We've put in maybe an hour or two or three, or who knows how much time we put into this process. But we're ready to pull the trigger and buy the thing that we have worked on. Well, down here it shows you your total cost. And this button says that by pushing this button, you are going to create the skin. The way that I interpret this UI element is that this is a transaction. I'm going to pay 50 Plex to create this skin, and then I'm going to have the skin, and I'm going to move on with my life, right? That's the way that I perceive it. Maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe I'm the only one that dense to have that expectation. But from my point of view, that is what your average user is going to expect, because they're not watching YouTube videos, they're not tuning into Twitch streams, so they have no idea that anything else could happen. So when I press the button to finish the transaction, it's like, hey, give a name to this. We'll call this shill. We'll call this the shill line. We'll save it, and we've hit the button. Now it starts talking about this minigame that we don't know anything about. Well, I don't know what's going on anymore. I pressed a button to purchase something, and instead I'm brought to this. It still shows me my cost, okay. It also tells me I'm going to have to wait a day and a half for my purchase. That's kind of weird. It tells me I need some materials. Well, we can view market details. If I want to buy 2,500 curs, we're going to be looking at, let's see, 2,500. That's fine. Like, cost doesn't matter, right, guys? ISK and Plex, none of that is a relevant conversation. So when you see people in the subreddit or Twitch chats or forums or wherever complaining about the cost of things, remember that they don't matter. CCP could put zeros at the end of this 50 right now, and it wouldn't be part of the conversation. It wouldn't matter, because they're cosmetic, and they're not necessary for gameplay and things like that. And some people don't like hearing that, but it's the truth. The cost is irrelevant. If you want some shiny, blingy thing on your ship, you have a goal toward working on. The issue that I'm having is I can't just make my purchase. I've already invested time in the studio to design the ship that I want, or the skin that I want, and for whatever reason, and this is the reason that's being debated a lot right now, some people are saying this is just a cash grab, some people are saying this is just microtransaction mobile game element garbage being jammed into EVE Online. Those are the opinions I'm seeing going around. We can have those debates, and that's fine, but the part that I get hung up on, personally, is that I pushed a button to make a purchase. And then I didn't make a purchase. Create the skin. This is what it's going to cost you. Cool. Now, what I would change is I would put all this information earlier in the process. That way the user is more or better informed about what their expectations should be. Instead of having a minigame and a wait time thrown onto them after they've already invested their own time in designing the skin. Now, again, maybe that's intentional. Maybe we'll see that on the subreddit and the forum posts about, it's just another manipulation. They want you, sunk cost fallacy, like, oh, you spent, 3 hours designing the skin that you're so super happy about. You've also been in the studio buying more slots, or, not slots, sorry, more patterns or more nano coatings, whatever. You're already mostly time, and maybe even Plex cost sunk into this project, and now there's an extra timer, an extra ISK cost, which again, I don't care about the cost personally, because it's all cosmetic. It doesn't matter. You can work toward it. The issue is, why is there an extra delay in time? Well, it's EVE and it's manufacturing. That's the way manufacturing in EVE works. That's great, but we're not manufacturing anything. We are making a purchase. This is a currency-backed transaction and nothing more. All this seems like fluff. It just seems like nonsense, and it's inferred into it. So we have an excuse to train skills that they've introduced in the game as well, to lessen your wait time, when there's no reason for a wait time to even exist in the first place. It was like, here's a solution to a problem that wasn't necessary ever at any stage in development. So what people were expecting, or what people wanted, was this: the SKINR system. Design a skin for your ship, be very happy with it, and then purchase it. The end. People want to blame devs, people want to get their pitchforks out and blame the wrong parties. If I had to take an educated guess, this section here wasn't created by anybody who was interested in fun or a quality game system, because this only makes sense through the lens of a financial business-making decision. That's it. Nobody of sound mind is working in video game development with the thought process or focus on fun and thought this would be fun. You know, it'd be great, guys, if we overcomplicated a system to get something you were purchasing and then made you wait, unless you train the appropriate skills to reduce that wait. Or, and here's the big one, if I were to buy these materials and get the total cost and start sequencing, I've heard that once you hit start sequencing, you're then offered another Plex transaction to reduce your wait time to 0. So you can just simply not ever train the skills for skin crafting and just pay more Plex to get your purchase immediately, which blows my mind, because you know when I thought that was going to happen? Back on this step, when it said, create the skin for 50 Plex. Here is a transaction. I would like to conduct my transaction. Well, we can't, because we've got to do this nonsense. And then even if you do our nonsense and you start sequencing, you now have to wait this long to get your purchase. Not your creation, guys. Your creation process was back here on this page of the studio. We're going to the transactions screen, but instead of getting a transaction, we get more wait time. Unless you pay more money. Even if you max out the skills training for SKINR, you are still going to be looking at, I believe, about a 40% wait time. And so yeah, that's the part that throws me out, that throws me for a loop. That the mini game here, I like the idea that these items are dropping in game, that you can run the content you've already been running, whether it's exploration or ratting or whatever PvE you do, probably other than mining. I bet mining doesn't have any interaction with it unless the belt rats are dropping them. But point being, I don't mind that the minigame exists. I mind that it was never communicated. It's nowhere in the process does the user, until it's too late, until they've already invested time and effort into designing their skin, get notified, oh, by the way, you need to play an entirely other minigame of purchases and complication and waiting and extra cost if you don't want to wait. It's just poorly presented, in my opinion. Now, that could just be me. You have to remember, this is through the lens of someone who isn't going to be reading tweets, isn't going to be reading dev patch notes, isn't going to be watching the Twitch broadcasts. It just isn't what your average user is going to do. And because of that, a lot of users are going to come into the system and leave with a bad taste in their mouth, because none of this made any sense at any part of the steps. They came in expecting to design their ship, make their purchase, and move on with life, and instead they run into an overwhelming amount of what the F is going on. So that's my perception on it. Hopefully I've explained it better here than I have in Twitch chat, but if you have questions or inputs or views that you'd like to share, put them in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.